Hello, we're back today and we're going to talk about 5 really quick, low-hanging fruit ways that you can improve the profitability even when you're talking about office supplies. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing I want to talk to you about is managing your ink. I know that this sounds really silly, but some of you really haven't paid a lot of attention to how the settings are set on your printer. And so you're going through a lot more ink than you really need to. Now, this also goes back to training your staff, because with the different qualities and with how you set your settings can have a huge impact on what your costs are just on your ink and your paper, for example. For some of you, it's as simple as going in and changing the settings so that you are not printing the highest quality anymore. Maybe you're using normal. I use draft most of the time because I don't need the highest quality, which is going to use the most ink. With a search that I found on that, usually you're looking at saving somewhere at least between 10 to 25% on the cost of your ink. That is substantial over a period of time. The other thing that I do often, this one's real easy. People do the reverse sides. Okay, that one's really easy. But how many of you are using the booklet form in order to do some of your proofs and other things? So it's printing on both sides, and it's also making it into the booklet if it happens to be multiple pages. Using that, so I'm changing one page into 4 pages, could very easily save you 50% on your ink there. So just a couple of real quick little changes that you make there just on the setting. When you think about it, may not be very much per ink cartridge, but let's go back to that multiplier. Every time you do that, that multiplies your savings. And when you start looking at it over a period of a year, or in my case, I often recommend that you multiply things times 10 years to see what type of a difference that would make on your bottom line. Even on a very, very small example, let's go back and say that on average, because you're using a lot of ink, if this applies in your business, let's say that you are saving maybe $40 a month, even if it's just one little cartridge. And for some of you, it's going to be much, much more than this. But $40 a cartridge that I'm saving at that point on my ink usage. And if I do that 12 times a year, well, that's $480. What's 480 times 10 years? 4,800. Each time you multiply this, the amount is getting higher and higher. And we're just talking about the quantity of ink and what it may be costing you. So that's at a 10% savings level. Now, we talked a little bit about if we go to booklets or we go to some other things. And remember, there's paper cost in here too. So if we reduce the amount of paper you have to purchase, which has gotten quite high. In my area, at this time this is filmed, I've got cases of paper that are up over $100 a case now. No problem. Of course, I'm watching to get them on sale like you are, but it's huge. Now, if you can do a 25% savings, you're looking at maybe $1,200 a year. What if you can knock it down by 50% on really looking at controlling these costs? Now you're up to about $2,400 a year times 10 years. That's an additional $24,000 to your bottom line. That can pay for an employee in a lot of cases, or part-time. Those of you who really grasp this, reduce the amount of printing that you're doing and looking at what you're paying for paper and that type of thing, not unusual. You can cut it down to 75% if you look at what's essential, what's not, what can I save as a PDF for reference? Do I really have to print this? Now, if you can reduce those costs by 75%, and my hypothetical example, so now we're up to maybe $300 a month, $3,600 a year. Now we've got over $36,000 in 10 years. And as I mentioned, this is really low hanging fruit, just by changing the settings on your printer, on the quality that's coming out. Do you have to have everything in color? Can you do black and white? Think about every amount here multiplied. Makes a huge difference. But you've also got to train staff on this particular area, and your kids at home, all of those things. The other thing that I've really seen that makes a huge difference, and I have been doing this for a long time, I am astounded at the number of people who will only buy the name brand ink and they are not using the OEMs or some of the others. I have resources for that I buy it in bulk because it's less per cartridge. And then in addition to that, they often run anywhere from 10 to 20% off sales. So I time my sales to get an even higher amount off. Now, recently, I'll tell you, I use an HP printer. That's what I use. I happen to like it. Now, on my HP, I went and priced it. And when I priced it out to get, in my case, I needed the black, and then I have the cyan, the magenta, and then we've got the yellow. So it is a 4 ink cartridge pack. It was online $86.99 at the time this was being filmed. Now, when I go to my other source, before I put the discount on it, same thing, 40, 47. So over $46 in saving just on that one 4-pack that has nothing to do with how I change the settings on my printer to reduce the amount of ink that's being used. So then we go back and I start looking at, well, what are some of the realities of that? Now, if I'm doing that on my refills, in my case, I'm looking at about a 46.5% decrease in the cost of my ink just at the purchase level. If I do 8 sets a month, depends on the size of your office, depends on the size of your staff, and I do that for 12 months, that's an additional $4,466 just on those little ink cartridges that you buy. Again, now let's look at it over 10 years. 10 years, it's almost $45,000. Makes a huge difference. Now, I know some of you are going to say, oh, yes, but if you don't use the name brand ink, you may have to replace a printer. It might be a problem. Well, let me fill you in. If I have to replace a $200 printer a little more often, and I'm saving, $4,500 a year, I really don't think spending $200 for a printer is going to make a hill of beans worth of difference. I'm still making money at this project. Something to think about. So don't look at that little replacement cost as being the problem. That's not where your problem is. And that brings me into something else. When do you think you should replace a failing printer? It's kind of an interesting question, isn't it? Well, you could replace it after you spend 2 weeks fighting it, cursing, screaming, ready to throw it across the room, stopping so that you can try to get a couple of pages out. You're very frustrated and you're irritated, but exactly how many hours did you spend on that? So, if it's costing you an hour or two a day, and what is the cost of that person, or what is the cost of your time over a period of 2 weeks? You could have more than paid for that printer, and you wouldn't have been behind on your projects either. And you wouldn't have wasted the paper and all the things that go with it. When should you replace a computer? Oh, well, you just wait till it fails completely. And then you aren't able to do anything until you stop, run to the office supply store, send somebody to get it so you can hook it up and download the drivers and make everything work and do the test and put the in. Yeah. How much time is that going to take you? And what about those things you needed to print? What's happened there? Again, it just puts you behind. What's it worth per hour of your time or your staff time? Oh, I know. I'll just go run and borrow somebody else's because it's not going to affect their productivity. And it's going to be super convenient when I go and do that, across the room, wherever. No, that doesn't work either. Now I'm tying up 2 people's time for me to be able to print my stuff. You can tell this is one of those things that just drives me crazy. I have reached the point where when a printer starts giving me trouble of more than 15 to 20 minutes, I'm done. I will just set it off to the side. I can let somebody else play with it later, or when there's a different time. I have 2 printers that are hooked up because printing or scanning is very important to me to be able to do it very, very quickly. How do I do that? Well, one of the things that I do is when printers are on sale, I will buy 4 or 5 printers just for me. It's not that big of an investment compared to what the cost of my time is. I have them set off to the side. If I have all the same model, then I'm able to use the ink supply that I have. No change in cost there, no loss. And I can just plug that baby in and I can keep going with no problem whatsoever. But also for the productivity, again, I have 2 because I can be scanning a large pile of documents and I can be printing at the same time or printing a couple of different projects, whatever the case may be, but I'm not waiting. So some of you are wasting a lot of time and money on printers, but most of what you're wasting is time, which is costing you the money. And again, you can pick them up so inexpensively. And to me, I don't even want a printer that doesn't scan at this point. It's totally useless to me. If you buy a couple of extras, it's not necessarily money down the drain. And if you have the entire office that all has the same models, or whoever you are, very easy. One dives, go grab it off the shelf. Now, my rule of thumb is when I get down to 2, I'm going out and I'm buying all new printers. So when my printer dies, and I only have 1 left at that point, I may be able to finish my job. It gives me that little bit of time now so that I am going to change over to the other printers so I can move forward. In a perfect world, I'm even going to buy the one that uses the same ink that I've been using all along because it's in my inventory. If it is not, and I've got to switch everything over, I'm going to put the ink up for sale locally, get rid of it because somebody will want it. And there's no reason for me to just throw it in the trash at that point. You may think differently, not the way that my brain thinks. That's like throwing money away. The other thing that I look at is on ongoing office supplies. And this one is a real simple one. I use folders, just regular old file folders, not the hanging folders, but folders that you would put things in and give to a client. You can order them online with amazing graphics, very, very inexpensively, but I can use just the plain ones and it works just fine. And for a lot of projects that I do, it depends on what's ahead. I may go through 600 folders in a course of a year or more. That's a lot of folders. However, what I have figured out is they don't go bad on the shelf. I don't even care what color they are. I may do something for different projects, but I happen to know that at least once a year, the office supply store right around school time is going to put these folders on sale. Now, the particular folders that I really like are usually around $17 a box of 24. Sometimes if I have to get them individually, they're like $1.69 or something. However, in August, those exact same identical folders I can buy individually for 20 cents each. Let me think about that. I know it's not a lot, but in my case, I can take what is around a $400 a year expense on folders, which are expendable. They're going to go through. They're going to be gone. It's an item I have to replace. It doesn't take that much shelf space for me to put the folders in there or in a drawer to use throughout the rest of the year. I only pay $120. I don't pay $400 for my folders. No, it's not that big. But in the course of 10 years, just by timing when I buy my folders in August to when they're at the lowest price, in 10 years, I can add another $2,800 to my bottom line. Now, think about the office supplies that you buy over time. Some of those you could purchase when they are on sale and you could stockpile, whether it is a quarter. In my case, I just do a whole year because it's easier for me to do. It doesn't take that much. But if you really look at this, you can dramatically drop the costs of what you're spending. You can't do it on every item, although I would like to. But just on folders, I am saving about 70% on just that one expendable item by controlling what I pay for it and when I purchase it. Are you training you and your staff to look for those kind of opportunities other than, well, just order it and pick it up, or just order it, they'll deliver it, which guarantees that you're going to be paying some of the highest prices and you're going to be giving away a large amount of your profit that you simply don't need to. So again, we're talking about some low-hanging fruit on what you can do in your office. This is another one. We live in a world of cell phones. It is not changing. My goodness, the amount of cell phone plans out there is just mind-boggling. One of the things I learned some time ago is every 6 months, there is a note on the calendar to go in and to have a call made to find out if we change plans, can we drop the price of our service? It's a phone call. Doesn't take much, doesn't take long. I've made a little spreadsheet in my case because there is a line charge, there is a national discount, what are the taxes, the fees, or whatever. Do you have insurance on the phone? Whatever your situation is. To go through on each phone, and at the present time, I think we got 6 or 7 lines that is on the one bill. And by going through, most of the time, I'm able to cut the savings somewhere. Now, the last time I did it, it was about $40 a month. No, that's not huge, but I looked at it times 12 months. All right, that's $500. That was certainly equal effort little effort in order to get a $500 a year savings almost. Wow. What's that times 10 years? Because most of you are using the same plans and you just leave them alone. You never ever look at them. You have no idea if you have the highest amount of data for the lowest price that works with your program or the things that you need, when just a quick phone call can make a huge difference. So don't waste the money on some of your cell plans because you just don't get around to dealing with it. We recently had an opportunity to upgrade all of our cell phones. That sounds good. Well, some of the cell phones we could upgrade for free. We had phones that were working just fine. I could upgrade to a new model and not turn my phone in for $5 a month. Okay, for 36 months. So for less than $200, I kept my old phone because it works just fine. In the event that I had a problem or I need a backup or we want to add a line quickly and there isn't a special going on, I still have something that I can use that has already been paid for and taken care of at that point. So don't miss out on your savings. And I'll go back to some of you are numbers people. Some of you are visual people who are watching this. That $40 a month saving that I had on my bill, it was like a 14% discount. Would you show up for a 14% discount? Only if you're going to make the phone call. Now, another low-hanging fruit that we're going to talk about on number 5 is credit card cash backs. Some of you think you're trying to control your cash flow, so you're using a debit card. Some of you just have not gotten around to changing your credit cards. But I'm going to talk to you about cash back cards. There's also a place for airline perks cards, but let's talk about cash back at this point. If you get a card that has no cash back, you charge it, you pay it off, go on, fine. The bank makes money, you got nothing, and especially if you're going to pay your bills on time, because that's when this really works. If you got a 1% cash back card and you did just a minimal amount, $3,000 a month. I mean, you put your cell phone, your groceries, your gas, the doctor's office, everything you can think of on this card. And let's say it's just $3,000 a month. Okay, over a period of a year, that's $3,600. And 1% is $360 that's handed back to you for paying your bill on time. You are sharing with the profits of the credit card company. In 10 years, $3,600. Well, what if I use a 2% cashback card? And that's one of my preference, 2% in any category, and I don't have to think about categories. So if I have that same $3,000 a month for 12 months, I'm going to get $720 in cash back that I can apply towards the card. I can put it in the bank, use it to fund part of a Roth IRA or your Roth 401k, but I could do something with it. And right now, folks, when this is being filmed, it is not taxable income either. And there isn't a limit on how much that you can earn, whether it is on a personal basis or it is in your business. Now, there are many of you who are tempted by the 3% cashback cards, but I want you to look at that. The 3% is usually on a category that you choose, and then you can reset it usually once a quarter, once a month, and then everything else is at a lower amount. Maybe it's at the 1%, but you got to read the fine print. Let's say that I chose 3% for gasoline because I thought I would spend the most on gasoline. And when I got my statement back and I go, well, wait a minute, I don't see any 3% on here. The stores I go at, they're still at 1%. What you cannot control is that the business is coded as a convenience store. A convenience store is not the same as a gas station. Therefore, none of the gas that you purchased at the convenience store is going to get the 3%. It's only going to get the 1%. So you've really got to pay attention on those 3% categories on what you're choosing and how the establishment has been set up on the merchant payment system, which you really have no control over. The same thing applies with the 5% cashback categories. And in many of these cases, they have limits. Maybe the limit is that you could be paid 5% on up to $1,500 of purchases per quarter. And then after that, you're not going to get it. So again, kind of looking at your spending, overall, I've usually found the flat 2% works out a little bit better. Some of you have airline miles cards. Airline miles cards can be great for the perks that they have. You generally want to pay with your flights with the airline miles cards because they often carry trip interruption insurance on there. Most of them for that airline will allow you to check your first bag free, even if you're back in economy class, and up to 4 people in your party. So if you're a family or someone traveling and you buy them all at the same time, you cannot buy each person an individual ticket and then show up with a card. No, it needs to be booked on the same reservation. Guess how I know that? And with that, let's say it's worth somewhere between $30 and $50 per bag each way. That is a heck of a perk on that. And you're going to have the points. Now, with your miles points, one of the things that I look at, because I use the cash back, is if I use my miles to pay for a flight, how much is it? So if the flight is $250 and I divide it by how many miles, 2 cents per mile, I'm not going to use my miles. I'm going to use my 2% cash back card, because that gives me a better reward than what the amount is per mile. So I hope that makes sense. The other thing that I've been able to do by watching the flight, and generally the further out you book, you already know it's cheaper. In many cases, I have been able to get my miles to be 3.5 or 4 cents per mile, which exceeds the 2% cashback. So obviously I'm going to use the miles. But if you're not using those kind of programs, you need to be. Some of you spend a lot of time in hotels and you're using the hotel cards for the points. Look at that. I've been very successful with individuals who just never bothered to do it, and they went on vacation or they did this or that and go, well, wait a minute, go back, contact where you stayed the longest, tell them you failed to show up for the program, ask them to help you, and been very successful in having the application turned in. And then they will look back. Usually they will not look back more than 30 to 90 days, and they will go ahead and add those prior stays to your account, which could give you instant free nights. But you need to work some of these programs. Again, we're talking about some benefits that are tax-free at this point, and they only allow you to manage your resources a little better. Low-hanging fruit. But if you're not pulling this low-hanging fruit, if you've been listening to me just over this short presentation with just these 5 things, you can make a difference of several $1,000s a year that does not affect your lifestyle. It did not require you to save. It did not make you cut out coffee or anything else. It's just leveraging the resources that you have in a little bit different ways. And these are really just the tip of the iceberg. We're just talking about some operational supplies and kind of operational day-to-day issues that many of us face. If you found this information to be helpful, give me a thumbs up, click the like button, subscribe. We have a lot of good information out there, and we're always looking for new topics that people have an interest in. So if you'd like to send us a note, please feel free to do that. But again, I'm going to encourage you, click the like button, subscribe, come look at some of the other videos, maybe able to enhance your life in ways you hadn't even thought of. Well, I'm Amy. It's been delightful being with you. I want you to be blessed. Thank you so much for watching the video. And don't forget, click that button if you haven't already done so.